What if I told you that most people who dream about building a billion-dollar company are already doomed from day one, not because they are lazy or unintelligent, but because they are thinking too small without even realizing it? The business world loves success stories, but it rarely talks about the brutal math behind them. In the United States, nearly half of all companies shut down within their first 5 years. Out of those that survive, the majority struggle to cross 6 figures in annual revenue. Less than 5% ever touch $1 million, and from that tiny group, only a microscopic fraction goes on to become billion-dollar companies. So when we talk about billion-dollar businesses, we are not talking about working harder or believing in yourself. We are talking about a completely different mindset, a different strategy, and a different level of discipline. This is not motivation. This is the real structure behind how massive companies are actually built. The first invisible mistake most entrepreneurs make is confusing income with scale. A small business can make good money, provide freedom, and even create wealth, but it is fundamentally designed to stay small. Billion-dollar companies are not optimized for comfort. They are optimized for impact. They start by identifying problems that affect millions, sometimes billions, of people in a painful and inefficient way. Uber did not wake up one day and decide to build an app. It looked at transportation and saw broken pricing, unreliable service, and outdated systems. Airbnb didn't invent travel. It noticed that people had empty homes while travelers were overpaying for hotels. Amazon didn't invent shopping. It attacked inefficiency at every level of retail. These companies didn't chase ideas. They chased massive friction. And when friction exists at scale, money follows the solution. But here's the part most people miss. Big problems attract competition. Seeing a billion-dollar problem is easy. Solving it in a way that changes behavior is not. This is where the idea of a category-defining product becomes critical. Incremental improvements do not create empires. They create price wars. Electric vehicles existed for over a century before Tesla, yet nobody wanted them. They were slow, ugly, and felt like sacrifices. Tesla didn't just improve EVs, it made them aspirational. It changed how people emotionally perceived electric cars. The same pattern repeats with Apple, which didn't invent smartphones but made everything else feel outdated overnight. Category-defining products don't compete on features, they redefine expectations. And once expectations shift, competitors are forced to chase instead of lead. After the product comes the graveyard where most startups die: distribution. This is the most boring sounding but most powerful concept in business. A great product without distribution is invisible. Amazon did not become a giant because it sold books online. It became a giant because it mastered logistics, fulfillment, and delivery at a scale nobody else could match. Warehouses, software, last-mile delivery, cloud infrastructure — this is what built Amazon's dominance. Today, Amazon is less a retailer and more a distribution engine for the global economy. The harsh truth is simple: whoever controls distribution controls access to customers, and whoever controls access controls the market. Many startups fail not because they lacked innovation, but because they underestimated how hard it is to reach people at scale. As a company grows, another challenge quietly emerges: decision-making. Early-stage businesses rely heavily on the founder's energy and judgment. That works until it doesn't. When a company reaches hundreds or thousands of employees, centralized decision-making becomes a bottleneck. This is why company culture matters more than most people realize. Culture is not office perks or slogans on walls. Culture is the system that determines how decisions are made when leadership is not watching. Google's culture encouraged experimentation, which led to innovations like Gmail and Google Maps. Netflix built a culture of extreme accountability and freedom, trusting employees to act like owners. These systems allow companies to scale intelligence, not just manpower. Growth without discipline leads to chaos. This is where operational excellence separates serious companies from sloppy ones. At small scale, mistakes are survivable. At large scale, they are catastrophic. One accounting error can trigger legal trouble. One supply chain failure can affect millions of customers. Japanese companies like Toyota became global leaders not just through innovation, but through obsessive focus on process, consistency, and quality. Operational excellence is the understanding that small details compound over time. How you do one thing is often how you do everything. Billion-dollar companies treat operations as strategy, not paperwork. Even with great products and operations, competition never stops. That's why building a competitive moat is non-negotiable. A moat is what prevents others from copying your success. Apple's moat is its ecosystem, which makes switching costly. Google's moat is data and network effects. Amazon's moat is logistics and infrastructure. Visa and Mastercard's moat is their global payment networks. Without a moat, growth is temporary. With a moat, growth compounds. This is the difference between companies that peak and companies that endure. Then comes branding, which many people misunderstand as marketing or design. Branding is not about logos or colors. Branding is about meaning. Billion-dollar companies rarely sell the thing they appear to sell. Coca-Cola sells happiness and nostalgia. Nike sells identity and victory. Red Bull sells adrenaline and adventure, not taste. When customers buy the meaning behind the product, loyalty becomes emotional, not logical. That kind of loyalty is extremely difficult to disrupt. Features can be copied, prices can be undercut. Meaning is far harder to replace. At the highest level, the final transformation happens when a company becomes infrastructure. Apple's devices are no longer optional gadgets. They are extensions of people's lives. Microsoft's software underpins governments and corporations worldwide. Visa and Mastercard quietly move trillions of dollars every year. These companies are too big to fail not because they are protected, but because removing them would destabilize entire systems. This is the endgame of scale becoming essential rather than optional. When you look at billion-dollar companies through this lens, a pattern becomes obvious. They are not built through shortcuts. They are engineered through deliberate choices made early and reinforced over time. Big problems, category-defining products, scalable distribution, strong culture, operational excellence, defensible moats, iconic brands, infrastructure-level relevance. Miss one of these and growth eventually stalls. So the real question is not whether building a billion-dollar company is possible. History already answered that. The real question is whether you are willing to think at that level, accept that comfort is the enemy of scale, and understand that this path demands clarity, patience, and relentless execution. And now I want to hear from you. If you had the chance to solve one problem that could realistically impact millions of lives, what would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep, logic-driven breakdowns of business, markets, and money content that cuts through noise instead of adding to it, stay connected here. Because in a world full of opinions, real understanding is the true advantage.